The grand hall of the Galactic Summit was unlike anything Lyra had ever seen. Towering arches of crystalline metal stretched toward the ceiling, reflecting the soft glow of floating energy lights that drifted lazily above the assembly. Delegates from countless star systems had gathered here, each wearing garments and symbols unique to their species, and the hum of alien languages filled the air like an intricate melody. Some sounds were musical, others harsh, but all spoke of centuries of culture and knowledge. Lyra adjusted the fabric of her official Zypheran cloak and took a deep breath. Her stomach churned with a mixture of excitement and nerves. This was not just another diplomatic meeting. This was the meeting where the galaxy's future could be shaped. The threat of the Void Swarm, a dark, consuming force that had already swallowed several star systems, hung over them like a shadow. Every species present had something to contribute, but she knew that humans were special. Humans. Lyra's mind wandered to memories that felt like they belonged to another lifetime. She had been young, fresh out of the academy, when disaster struck on the colony world of Orales IX. A mining catastrophe had trapped her team beneath the collapsing tunnels. Darkness, smoke, and the sounds of cracking rock surrounded them. They had radioed for help, but the response was slow. Hours passed, then days. They were running out of oxygen, hope, and strength. Then, out of nowhere, a human ship had appeared. Sleek, silver, and unassuming in appearance, it had swooped down through the stormy atmosphere, navigating the unstable terrain with precision that seemed almost impossible. A small team of humans had boarded the tunnels, cutting debris, guiding the team out. Lyra had remembered the captain, tall, calm, and with eyes that seemed to carry both determination and kindness. The human had refused to leave anyone behind, even when the risk to their own lives was clear. Lyra shivered slightly as she remembered that moment. She had promised herself that if she ever met that human again, she would thank them properly. She had never imagined that it would happen in such a grand, intimidating place as the Galactic Summit. And yet, here he was, or at least, someone she suspected was him. Lyra scanned the crowd, her eyes searching, heart pounding. She wasn't sure if he would even remember her, or if he would recognize her among the thousands of delegates and assistants bustling through the hall. Then, as her eyes fell on a figure speaking quietly to a group of diplomats from another system, something clicked. The posture, the slight tilt of the head, the calm assurance in his gestures, there was no mistaking it. It was him. Her pulse quickened and a nervous smile tugged at her lips. But she had a role to play. The summit had strict protocols. Personal feelings could not interfere with official duties. Lyra squared her shoulders, inhaled deeply, and reminded herself of the task ahead. To deliver her opening address, a speech that could sway the Council's decision on forming a united defense against the Void Swarm. The announcement echoed through the hall. "Delegates, please take your seats. The opening session of the Galactic Summit begins." The room quieted almost instantly, the chatter fading into whispers. Lyra made her way to the stage, her boots clicking softly against the polished floor. The audience was immense, spanning dozens of species, each pair of eyes, or equivalent, focused on the podium. Some watched curiously, others with impatience. Many had seen humans before, but few had experienced them firsthand. And most did not know how much humanity had already contributed to the safety of countless worlds. Lyra took her place behind the microphone. The lights above glinted off her cloak, and for a moment she closed her eyes, letting herself remember the feeling of survival, of being saved by someone who had risked everything. When she opened her eyes, she saw him again. The human captain, though now older, wearing a formal uniform marked with insignias she did not yet recognize, stood among his delegation, watching quietly. For a heartbeat, their eyes met. Lyra's throat went dry. She wanted to speak to him, to run across the hall and embrace him, but she knew that the entire galaxy was watching. She cleared her throat and began, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "Esteemed delegates of the Galactic Summit," she began. "We gather at a moment of great urgency. The Void Swarm has consumed countless worlds, leaving nothing but silence in its path. Each civilization here represents a unique contribution to the survival of our galaxy. Yet it is not only our technology, not only our strategy that will ensure our safety. It is our unity, our courage, and our willingness to trust one another." As she spoke, she noticed subtle shifts in the audience. The alien species, some with multiple limbs or shimmering translucent skin, leaned forward slightly. Even the human delegation seemed attentive. Lyra's confidence grew. She allowed herself a brief glance toward the captain. He nodded subtly as if to say, "You've got this." That small gesture grounded her. Lyra continued, recounting the strategies her planet had proposed, the defensive technologies developed over centuries, and the urgent need for coordination. Yet she did not yet reveal the personal story that weighed heavily on her heart. That moment, she decided, would come later. For now, she laid the foundation, building trust, showing competence, and demonstrating that she belonged among the galaxy's greatest minds. After what felt like an eternity, the Council's moderator, a tall, crystalline being with eyes that shifted color, interrupted with a polite gesture. "Thank you, Delegate Lyra. Your insights are compelling. We now open the floor for discussion." Hands, claws, tentacles, and appendages of every shape rose in turn. Questions, suggestions, and challenges flew from every corner. Lyra answered each with calm precision, her mind never straying far from the human who had saved her. She remembered how he had faced danger without hesitation, how he had risked his own life to ensure the safety of strangers. That courage, that humanity was rare and precious, and now it had a chance to shine on the grandest stage in the galaxy. As the discussion continued, Lyra caught sight of a disturbance at the entrance of the chamber. Delegates whispered among themselves, and a ripple of tension passed through the room. She followed the movement with her eyes and saw a figure enter, a human, but not the captain. Another human diplomat, tall, stern, and authoritative, walked to his assigned seat. Lyra's stomach tightened. She had not expected to see all of humanity present. The human captain remained seated calm, observing the room with quiet focus. Something in the way he held himself reminded her of those dark hours on Arali's IX. Even here, in a room full of powerful delegates, he radiated the same courage, the same quiet strength. She realized then that the story she carried, the story of survival, hope, and humanity's heroism, was not hers alone to tell. It belonged to all who had been inspired, saved, or changed by humans. Minutes turned to hours as debate raged on. Lyra contributed when she could, carefully weaving her ideas into the broader discussions. Every so often, she would catch a glimpse of the captain's eyes, always calm, always encouraging, and she felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps this summit, with all its pomp and politics, could be more than just a gathering of powerful beings. It could be the moment when the galaxy recognized the strength of humanity, not just in technology or firepower, but in courage and compassion. Finally, as the session drew to a close, Lyra stepped back from the podium. Her knees were slightly weak, but her mind was racing. She had done well, she thought, but the story she had yet to tell, the story that could truly capture the room, the story of how one human had saved an entire world, remained locked in her chest. She turned her gaze to the captain. He gave her the smallest of nods, and for the first time she allowed herself to smile. It was a smile filled with gratitude, recognition, and quiet anticipation. Soon, she would tell the story. Soon, the room would hear what humans were truly capable of. And in that anticipation, Lyra felt a fire ignite within her, a fire of courage, of memory, and of the hope that one person's bravery could ripple through the galaxy. The first day of the summit ended, but for Lyra, the journey was only beginning. She had faced the largest assembly of beings she had ever known, and yet the real challenge, the one that could change the galaxy forever, lay ahead. The words that would honor the human who had saved her, and in doing so, remind every species in the room that humanity was more than they had ever imagined. The next morning, the Galactic Summit Hall was alive with anticipation. Delegates whispered in clusters, their voices a mix of curiosity and tension. Lyra felt the weight of their attention before she even stepped onto the stage. Today, she would not just present ideas about defense strategies or technology. Today, she would tell a story. Her story, the story of a human who had saved her life, and the story that could remind the galaxy of humanity's true power, courage, compassion, and hope. Her heart raced as she adjusted the microphone. She could see the eyes of hundreds of beings fixed on her. Tall, insected diplomats with multifaceted eyes, beings with translucent skin revealing glowing internal organs, and even the humans who had become her allies in recent years. In the very center, she noticed him, the human captain. His calm presence made her both nervous and confident. Lyra took a deep breath and began. "Esteemed delegates," she said, her voice steady. "Yesterday we spoke of strategy, coordination, and defense. We shared ideas and technologies. Today, I want to speak of something equally important: the courage that drives us, the compassion that guides us, and the humanity that can unite us even in the darkest of times. She paused. The room quieted further, the alien chatter falling into silence. Many leaned forward, intrigued. Few had heard humans described in such a personal and emotional way in a formal setting. Lyra's mind drifted for a moment to Orali's IX, the colony world where her life had changed. She saw the collapsing tunnels, the smoke and dust that choked the air, and the fear that had gripped her and her team. Then, through the chaos, she remembered the human ship descending, cutting through the storms with precision and bravery. She remembered the captain's voice, calm but commanding as he guided them to safety. And she remembered the feeling of hope, the first spark of life in a place where death had seemed certain. She chose her words carefully, letting each one carry meaning. Years ago, on a world far from here, my team and I faced a situation we thought we could not survive. We were trapped beneath rubble, our lives slipping away with every passing moment. Then, a human ship arrived. They risked their lives to save us. One human, whose courage and determination refused to let fear control them, ensured that none of us would be left behind. That human taught me a lesson that I carry to this day: that true strength is not only in power or technology, it is in the choice to act for others, even when the odds are against you. The delegates listened intently. Some were skeptical, exchanging quiet glances, but others were clearly moved. Lyra could feel the tension in the room shift, like a tide pulling at the hearts and minds of everyone present. She continued, letting the story unfold naturally. This act of courage was not a single moment. It was a symbol. It showed that humanity, though young among the stars, possesses qualities that even the oldest civilizations have struggled to maintain: bravery, empathy, and the unyielding will to protect life. It is these qualities, more than any weapon or shield, that can guide us in our fight against the Void Swarm. We can build fleets, we can develop shields and weapons, but without courage and cooperation, technology alone will not save us. Lyra glanced briefly at the human captain. He remained composed, eyes calm, but she caught a faint smile at the corner of his lips. That small acknowledgement gave her the strength to continue. She shifted the speech to focus on the present challenge: the Void Swarm. The Void Swarm does not distinguish between species, culture, or strength. It consumes without mercy. Yet, if we unite, if we learn from each other and share our courage and knowledge, we can survive. We can create a defense that is not just technological, but moral, ethical, and humane. And humanity can lead the way, not through domination, but through example. At this, murmurs rippled across the room. Many delegates had seen humans only as traders, explorers, or soldiers. Few had considered that humans could inspire moral leadership on a galactic scale. Lyra knew she had their attention now, and she pressed on. I speak not as an advocate of one species over another, but as someone who has seen the potential of humanity in action. I have been saved, inspired, and guided by humans who risked everything for others. And if we allow ourselves to recognize the virtues of our allies, we can form a coalition that no force in the galaxy can defeat, not even the Void Swarm. The room was quiet. Every delegate seemed to be listening intently. Lyra felt her pulse quicken. She knew that what she was about to do next would determine the impact of her words. She leaned slightly forward, lowering her voice so that it carried a personal weight. Today, I wish to honor a human who saved my life. His name is Captain Elias Hart. Years ago, he and his crew rescued me and my team from certain death. He did not hesitate, even when his own life was at risk. I stand here, alive and able to speak to all of you because of his courage and humanity. And I tell you this not to glorify one individual, but to show what humanity as a whole can offer to the galaxy: hope, bravery, and the willingness to act when it matters most. The delegates were stunned. Some remained silent, processing the words. Others whispered among themselves, exchanging glances filled with surprise and curiosity. It was not common for a diplomat to speak so personally in such a formal setting, especially when praising humans so openly. Lyra felt a wave of nervousness. She had broken protocol in a way, but she also knew it was necessary. The room needed to feel the story, not just hear facts. She pressed on, allowing emotion to guide her next words. Courage is contagious, compassion is powerful, and unity is unstoppable. If we let fear and pride divide us, the Void Swarm will continue its path of destruction. But if we choose to act together, inspired by examples of bravery like those shown by humanity, we can survive and thrive. We can protect our worlds, our cultures, and our people, not through domination, but through shared strength and moral conviction. A ripple of reaction passed through the audience. Delegates whispered in awe. Some stood, hesitant but inspired. The human captain remained seated, watching quietly, but she could feel his pride. Lyra took another deep breath and delivered the final portion of her speech, the part she had been preparing for since the summit began. Let this be a reminder to all of us. One life, one choice, one act of courage can change the course of history. Humanity has shown this not once but countless times, and today we have the opportunity to carry that lesson forward. Let us unite not just in strategy but in spirit. Let us defend the galaxy together, guided by courage, empathy, and hope. And let the void swarm learn that even in darkness, life, compassion, and unity cannot be destroyed. For a long moment the room was silent. The delegates stared at her, processing the weight of her words. The hum of alien conversations had stopped. Even the ones who had come to this summit with pride, arrogance, or skepticism were now listening, caught by the sincerity and strength of her speech. Then, slowly, a single delegate began to clap. It was a small, deliberate sound. Then another joined, and another. The applause grew steadily, spreading across the hall like a wave. Some species clapped with hands, some tapped surfaces, others produced melodic sounds that echoed like music. The energy in the room shifted from tense diplomacy to something far more profound: recognition, respect, and inspiration. Lyra stepped back, her chest heaving slightly, her mind racing. She had delivered her story. She had honored the human who had saved her life. And she had reminded the galaxy of something they had long underestimated: that humanity was capable of inspiring courage and unity, not just fear or competition. From the corner of her eye, she saw Captain Elia's heart rise. He was not shouting or drawing attention to himself. He simply stood, a proud but modest gesture. Lyra felt a surge of gratitude and joy. She had done what she had come to do. The moderator of the summit, a towering being with metallic skin that shifted colors with emotion, raised its appendage. "Delegate Lyra," it said, its voice resonating through the hall. "Your speech is unprecedented. It is rare to see such clarity of purpose and depth of understanding. You have reminded us that courage, compassion, and unity are as important as technology and strategy." "We thank you." Delegates continued to clap, some standing, some raising symbols of agreement or appreciation. Lyra felt tears threaten to fall, but she held them back. This was not about her. It was about the human who had saved her, the inspiration of humanity, and the hope for the galaxy. As the applause continued, Lyra looked across the hall and met Elia's heart's eyes once more. This time, their silent exchange spoke volumes. No words were needed. The story had been told. The lesson had been delivered. And for the first time, Lyra felt that she, humanity, and countless others across the galaxy were united in purpose. The speech had stopped the room, but it had also started something far greater: a movement of hope, courage, and unity that would extend far beyond the walls of the summit. Lyra stepped down from the podium, her legs trembling but her heart soaring. She knew the journey ahead would be difficult, that the void swarm still threatened countless worlds. But she also knew that humanity had shown the galaxy a truth that could not be ignored. One life, one act of courage could change everything. And in that moment, as delegates approached to speak with her, to share ideas, and to offer cooperation, Lyra realized that the story of her survival and the heroism of one human had become a spark that could ignite the courage of an entire galaxy. The applause from Lyra's speech had barely faded when a quiet, electric energy settled over the Galactic Summit Hall. Delegates whispered among themselves, but this time their words carried something different: curiosity, respect, and the faint glimmer of hope. What Lyra had said about humanity, about courage and compassion, had changed the atmosphere. It was no longer a formal political meeting. It was becoming a conversation about unity, about action, about survival. Lyra stepped down from the podium, her knees slightly weak but her heart soared. She scanned the room. The human captain, Elia's heart, remained standing, calm and composed, yet his eyes held pride. He had not needed the recognition, he never did. But now, for the first time in many years, Lyra could show her gratitude openly. And in doing so, she had reminded the galaxy that humanity's worth was more than technology or diplomacy. Delegates from multiple species began to approach her. The first was a tall, elegant figure from the planet Thrill. Its translucent skin shimmered with soft blue light as it spoke, its voice like music. "Delegate Lyra," it said, "your words, they resonate. We have always known humans were brave, but you have reminded us that bravery and morality can coexist. We would like to cooperate in a joint defense initiative." Lyra smiled, nodding politely. She had expected formal responses, perhaps cautious offers, but not this immediate warmth. One by one, other delegates stepped forward. Some spoke of new technologies they could contribute. Others shared knowledge of their military strategies. But all seemed inspired by something deeper than just survival. They were moved by the principle Lyra had emphasized: courage, compassion, and unity. Captain Hart approached her quietly. "You did well," he said, his voice calm but firm. "You reminded them that humanity is not just about strength. You reminded them what hope looks like." Lyra felt warmth rise in her chest. "I couldn't have done it without thinking of what you taught me," she replied. "It's more than just technology or tactics. It's about showing them the choice to be brave." He nodded. "Sometimes that's the hardest part." By midday, the summit had transformed. The delegates no longer sat in strict divisions based on planets or alliances. Instead, small clusters had formed around discussions of cooperative strategies. Some were tentative at first, still testing the waters, but slowly they began to share, to collaborate, to listen. Lyra moved among them, offering insights, connecting leaders who had never spoken before, and using her speech as a bridge. She noticed a group of Thrillians debating with the Gloran delegation. The Thrillians' approach to energy shields was highly technical, precise, but lacking in adaptability. The Glorans, on the other hand, had flexible, adaptive shields but limited energy capacity. Lyra suggested a hybrid approach, inspired by human innovation methods she had observed during her training with Captain Hart. The delegates listened, eyes widening as they realized the potential of combining their technologies. Meanwhile, whispers of her speech had spread beyond the room. Other delegations, those who had initially doubted humanity's significance, were now approaching human representatives with new respect. The word human was no longer spoken with skepticism. It was spoken with curiosity and admiration. Humans were seen as more than explorers or fighters. They were seen as examples of moral courage, capable of inspiring others even in times of crisis. Lyra's focus returned to the captain. She watched as he calmly engaged with other humans, answering questions, proposing strategies, and encouraging collaboration without claiming authority. His presence alone commanded respect, not through intimidation, but through competence and humility. She realized that the impact of one person, one life, could ripple through the galaxy if it was carried by integrity and example. By the afternoon, a formal session was called to discuss a united defense strategy against the Void Swarm. This was the moment Lyra had been building toward. She took her seat next to the captain as delegates filled the hall. The energy was different now, hopeful, determined, and cooperative. The moderator, the towering metallic being whose colors shifted with emotion, raised its appendage. "Delegates, we have witnessed extraordinary discussion today. A speech earlier has reminded us of something essential. Survival is not only about technology or tactics, but about the values that guide us. We now open the floor to formal proposals for a united galactic defense." Lyra's pulse quickened. She had already spoken about courage and humanity's potential, but now she would help turn words into action. She stood and addressed the assembly. "Esteemed delegates," she began, "today we have seen something remarkable. We have seen different species with different strengths come together to share ideas openly. This is what unity looks like. Our task is to defend the galaxy, yes. But to do so effectively, we must combine our knowledge, our courage, and our creativity. Humanity has shown that one act of bravery can inspire many. Imagine what we can do if we unite all our strengths." Delegates listened intently. Lyra outlined a plan that incorporated contributions from every species present. It included advanced shielding techniques, flexible energy fields, rapid response fleets, and coordinated communication systems. But she also emphasized collaboration, trust, and shared responsibility. "Technology alone cannot save us," she said. "We need commitment, courage, and cooperation. Each of us has something unique to offer, and each act of bravery, big or small, will shape our future. We must stand together not only to defend our worlds, but to prove that life and hope are stronger than fear and destruction. As she spoke, Captain Hart joined in, offering technical insights and proposing coordination strategies among human and alien fleets. Together, they illustrated not just the power of strategy, but the value of leadership built on respect, empathy, and shared goals. The room erupted in discussion, but this time it was different. Arguments were constructive. Debates focused on solutions, not competition. Species that had once distrusted each other were collaborating, inspired by the example of humanity's courage and Lyra's words. The Void Swarm, a force that had seemed unstoppable, suddenly felt like a challenge that could be met if they acted as one. Hours passed. Maps were drawn, strategies were revised, and alliances were formed. Lyra moved through the room, speaking quietly to delegates, encouraging ideas and mediating disagreements. She marveled at the transformation. The summit was no longer a collection of separate civilizations. It was a community united by a common goal. During a brief pause, Lyra found herself standing outside the hall, catching her breath. Captain Hart approached quietly. "You've done more than inspire," he said. "You've helped them see that they can act together. That's harder than it looks." Lyra smiled, fatigue and relief mingling in her expression. "I just told the truth," she replied. "I told them what I had seen, what I had felt, and what humans are capable of. They responded because it is real, not because it is convenient." He nodded thoughtfully. "Real courage always has a way of spreading. You reminded them of that." The day ended with a formal vote to approve a coordinated defense initiative. It passed unanimously, a historic moment for the galaxy. Delegates shook hands, exchanged symbols of agreement, and signed preliminary treaties. The Void Swarm would not have an easy path. The galaxy had chosen to stand together. Lyra watched as Captain Hart quietly stepped away, letting others take credit for their shared plan. She realized that he never sought recognition. He had acted because it was right, not because it was celebrated. Yet she knew the truth. His courage and the courage of countless humans like him had shaped this moment. As the summit hall emptied, Lyra stayed behind briefly, reflecting on what had happened. She thought of Orali's IX, of the fear she had felt, and of the hope that had arrived in the form of a single human. And now she thought that hope had grown, spreading through hundreds of delegates across dozens of civilizations. A young Thrillian approached her, eyes bright with excitement. "Delegate Lyra," it said, "thank you. Today you have not only saved worlds, but inspired us. Your courage has taught us something we will never forget." Lyra smiled. "No," she replied softly, "the courage belongs to all of us. To act, to care, to protect, that is what matters. But I will tell you this, one human showed me that even in darkness we can choose light. And that is why we will survive." The Thrillian nodded solemnly and walked away. Lyra turned toward the hall entrance and saw Captain Hart waiting. Together, they stepped outside into the glow of the alien sun, feeling the warmth of hope and unity that stretched across the galaxy. The story of one human's bravery had become a catalyst for something greater. A united galaxy, prepared to face the Void Swarm not just with technology, but with courage, empathy, and hope. Lyra looked up at the sky, the stars stretching endlessly above, and felt a sense of peace. The summit had shown her that the smallest acts of courage could ripple across the cosmos, inspiring others in ways no one could predict. Humanity had proven its worth, not through domination or power, but through action, character, and heart. And for the first time in a long while, Lyra felt certain. The galaxy was not only in capable hands, it was in hands guided by hope, unity, and the courage to choose light, even in the darkest moments. Together, humans and aliens would face the challenges ahead. Together, they would protect the galaxy. And together, the story of courage, compassion, and unity would live on, remembered for generations to come.